call to order the organizational meeting for Virginia School Boards. If you would please join me as we say the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you for joining us this evening. Our first order of business is the election of a chairperson. So at this time, I would like to ask board members if there's a nomination for chair.
I'd like to nominate Breanne Hubbard.
We have a nomination. Do we have a second? Seconded by Mr. Goodpasture. Mrs. Jones, would you please do a roll call vote?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Fletcher.
Yes.
Mrs. Forbes Hubbard.
Yes.
Mr. Goodpasture.
Yes.
Mrs. Guffey.
Yes.
Mr. Albus.
Yes.
And the motion carries. Congratulations, Mrs. Forbes Hubbard. When the music stops, please find a seat. And board members, if you don't mind turning your placards around at this time. I'm sorry. Well, that will be your first order of business.
All right. Can everybody hear me okay? All right. Next order of business is election of a vice chair. Do we have a nomination for election of a vice chair?
I'll make a motion for Vanessa Guffey.
Second?
Second.
Ms. Jones?
Mr. Albus.
Yes.
Mr. Fletcher.
Yes.
Mr. Goodpasture.
Yes.
Mrs. Guffey.
Yes.
Ms. Forbes Hubbard. Mrs.
Yes.
Forbes Hubbard.
Musical chair.
You can turn your nameplate around. Okay. Moving on to election of the school board clerk, a nomination for the school board clerk.
I'll make a motion for Tammy Jones. Second.
All right, motion and a second. Could you please call the roll?
Mr. Albus.
Yes.
Mr. Fletcher.
Yes.
Mr. Goodpasture.
Yes.
Mrs. Guffey.
Yes.
Mrs. Forbes Hubbard.
Yes. All right, moving on to the school board deputy clerk. Do we have a nomination for the deputy clerk?
Make a motion, I nominate Ms. Austin, Deputy Clerk.
Can we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Albus.
Yes.
Sorry. Mr. Fletcher.
Yes.
Mr. Goodpasture.
Yes.
Mrs. Guffey.
Yes.
Mrs. Forbes Hubbard.
Yes. All right, moving on to the committee appointments. Do we have the committee appointments? All right, so I'll just briefly go over these. For career and technical, we have Mr. Alvis and Mr. Fletcher. Communications, Mr. Alvis and myself. Advanced programs, myself and Ms. Guffey. Curriculum, Mr. Goodpasture and Mrs. Guffey. Special education, Mr. Alvis and Mrs. Guffey. Health, myself and Mr. Goodpasture. Technology, myself and Mrs. Guffey. Governor's School, Mr. Fletcher, and myself for Region 7 Virtual Academy. Does anybody wish to change their committees, join a different one? Are we all okay with those? Good? Good with your committees?
Probably,
Oh, right.
I was looking, Ms. Guffey needs to be on the communications with you.
Okay,
And there was one that she was on, I thought we could just swap.
okay.
I'm trying to get to that.
We have advanced programs, curriculum, special education, technology.
So I'm already on the special ed. I think curriculum.
All right. All right, we don't need a motion on that, right, since I'm just appointing them? All right. So we'll move on to approval of the agenda. Could I get a motion to, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I make a motion, we approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Motion a second. Any further discussion? Call the roll.
Can you send an email with all those positions listed?
Yes.
Thank you.
Can we call the roll, please, on approval of the agenda?
Mr. Alvis,
Yes.
Mr. Fletcher,
Yes.
Mr. Goodpaster,
Yes.
Mrs. Guffey,
Yes.
Mrs. Forbes Hubbard.
Yes. All right, we'll move on to reports. Dr. Scott?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First is our update on the intermediate school project. And you can see from the photos that are on display right now, work continues there. The good news is that the contractors say that we're still on target for our completion date. A lot of the progress that is taking inside is taking in, or that is taking place is taking place inside, excuse me. The picture at the top of the screen right now is in the gymnasium, and we have one of the loo systems put in. And these are fascinating systems, but it gives an interactive panel or an interactive space on the wall, actually, for students to participate in some academic games. So those are becoming all the rage in a lot of elementary schools right now, but very happy that we'll have that. You can see in the lower picture some of the color coming onto the walls there, and I think that when we start to see more of that, everything that we have known as being a two-dimensional drawing over the last several months, when you get to see it in 3D and see those colors coming in, we have a beautiful school that we're about to open. I'm very proud of it. In other news, in terms of safety training, the day after our last school board meeting, myself and members of the central office staff went over to Virginia High to participate in a walkthrough to kind of simulate what our parent-child reunification plan would look like. This gave us an opportunity to collaborate and to imagine in the space where it would happen some of the obstacles that we would be facing on that day. And I think it was a very eye-opening event for us. It gave us a lot to talk about and some things to come back and purchase to help make those go better. But it's all in continuation of the mindset that when there is a disruptive event, one of the things that we can do is to be proactive in our planning for that so that we can minimize the disruption. In that same vein, the Code of Virginia requires a second round of lockdown drills after the first 60 days of school, so we are past 60 days, obviously. So we are going to be doing another round of lockdown drills in January. We are not going to share the specific date of that, but we have asked the Bristol Police Department to participate in those drills. We will be notifying families either by phone call or email ahead of those events, and then on the day of the lockdown drill, we will text them to let them know that the drill has been initiated, and then we'll text them again or send out some other push notification to let them know when the drill has concluded. That will give us an opportunity to practice our communications as well as having the students and the staff go through the things that they need to do in the event of an actual lockdown event. Over the winter break, our B180 program had high levels of participation. We had approximately 30 students participating at Van Pelt Elementary School. Even on the quote-unquote snow day that we had there, the first Monday of the break, we had 23 students show up, so they were still able to go to the school and be cared for and allow their parents to work as scheduled during the time when our schools were out of session. I'm very happy about this next one. We have good news from the school nutrition department. Ms. Leah Parks informed me last week that 98% of the employees at her department have earned the ServSafe food handler certification. So this is a great achievement, and it's reflective of Leah's leadership. We are very proud to call her our own, and that the high level of accomplishment of her staff It is something that we want to recognize and just say publicly that we appreciate that level of professionalism and that dedication. And because of those things, it's evident that she is a truly great leader for that department. So hats off to them. I also want to mention that ServSafe certification is the same that students can earn through Lisa Adkins' class at the high school. So well done to the school nutrition staff. Mr. Buckles and the maintenance department have a couple updates. After the winter break, one of our hardworking custodians at the high school realized that a number of our seats in the gymnasium had worked themselves loose. I don't think the seats did it on their own. I think that friendly student feet had pushed them out a little bit. But Mr. Buckles diverted his whole staff to make sure that that got fixed in a timely fashion. And I don't want to sugarcoat that or to mislead anybody when I say a number of seats. We're talking about 150 seats or so. So his staff really did a good job of getting in there and making sure that they were anchored in and ready to go before our next events there. Mr. Buckles also reports that the elevator at Virginia Middle School is now complete. I think if anybody drove past the middle school during the break, you probably saw a number of vans out there. So those guys could get in and get the work done at the time. And I see Dr. Chitwood nodding that, yes, they were in there. So that elevator project is now complete and new permits are in place. Mr. Shelton has another project for Virginia Middle School that is in the works, as reported last month with the security equipment grant that will provide funding for the new intercom system. Right now, that project is out for bid, and we're hoping to report back with a contract on that as soon as possible. But that work will be done during this school year. We have a few upcoming events to take note of. Mrs. Angel Hudson has taken a lead role in planning the wellness fair for January 17th. She never accepts my saying it that way. She always insists that she has helped planning that and that we are planning that in conjunction with the city. But that event will take place from 2 to 6 on the 17th here at Central Office. At this point, we have 39 vendors who plan to join us, and this event is open to BVPS employees and their families. On the next day, January 18th, there will be a curriculum expo at Virginia High School. This night will give CTE teachers and other teachers of elective courses an opportunity to showcase their courses and to get students interested in the broad selection of courses that we have to offer them. Students will be registering for classes in the very near future, so this is an excellent opportunity to see what's out there, or rather to see what's in there. I've learned in my years that by and large, a lot of students are engaged in their high school process and take classes and have great aim, but there's also a percentage of students who don't have that same aim, and high school tends to happen to them. And we want to make sure that those students understand that this is an opportunity, their families understand that this is an opportunity to get out and see the great programming that we have available. That event will happen, as I said, on the 18th. It will go from 5:30 to 7 in the cafeteria in the front hallway. At 6:30 on that same night, we'll be streaming this month's mental health topic in the library. So families will be invited to join us for that in the library. This month's mental health topic will be how to help your child succeed, and it will look at 3 different parenting styles. We'll also be hosting that event simultaneously at Highland View Elementary School. And then a couple athletic events to take note of, some major events. Virginia High will be hosting the Ed Kressel Wrestling Tournament January 12th and 13th. And there will be 26 different teams at this. And then shortly after that, beginning on January 18th, Virginia High will be hosting the Friendship Cars Virginia Invitation Basketball Tournament. And that event will go from the 18th through the 21st. And that, Madam Chair, is my report for this month.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? All right, thank you very much. Our student board representatives, would you like to share your report, please?
So on Tuesday, January 2nd, students were welcomed back to school from winter break. At the high school, final exams were taken before the break, so students are still in those first semester classes. They're focusing on finishing up those classes and taking SOLs where they're required. And our new semester will begin on January 16th, right after the Martin Luther King Jr. Day holiday.
The varsity girls basketball team is preparing for their upcoming district games. Over winter break, They had a notable win over Union, where they won 55-49. The boys basketball team is currently in first place in their district. They also had a notable win over Winter Break, where they beat Abingdon 59-48. Before the basketball team games against Tennessee High last month, the high school participated in VT Spirit Week. Spirit Squad made posters to hang around the school while the PTO helped choose the theme days. The themes were school colors, winter wonderland, decades, jerseys, and ugly Christmas sweaters.
This past month, our swim and dive team competed on the 5th and the 12th. And they've been practicing over the winter break in preparation for the second half of their season. While they were originally set to start back this past weekend, some poor weather in the area had that event postponed. So they will the next meet they will be competing in will be this Thursday at the high school.
The Scholastic Bowl team is also preparing for the second half of their season. So far, they picked up district wins against Lebanon and Marion, as well as several wins in weekend tournaments. They were supposed to travel to Richlands on Saturday for the Tornado Invitational Tournament, but that's been rescheduled to next Saturday. So their next match is still on Wednesday, January 10th in Tazewell.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Does that swim meet start at 6? Does the swim meet, does it start at 6?
Yes.
All right, well, thank you very much for your report. We'll move on to public comment. Just a reminder, we haven't had public comment in a few months. Folks are limited to 3 minutes at a time, and there's no response from the board. It's us listening, but we won't be saying anything back. I have one card from Montana Grimes. If you'd like to come up to the podium, please.
Good evening. Good evening, members of the board, educators, and community members. My name is Montana Grimes. I come before you as a concerned parent, deeply troubled by the recurrent use of physical restraints on my child, who is on the autism spectrum, and by broader safety concerns that affect all our children with special needs. Over the past year, there have been several alarming incidents. My son was able to access a cleaning spray bottle and was subsequently restrained, a situation that unfolded over an hour without any notification to me, despite the presence of 5 adults. He was restrained again today on the sidewalk, where he states the principal choked him, and the principal states he was trying to protect his head. Restraint has killed kids and is an unsafe practice. My son reports being restrained since March 2023, leading to mental trauma and self-injury behavior. Furthermore, approximately a year ago, a child with special needs eloped from a special needs bus onto a busy road in dangerous weather conditions, and cars had to stop and avoid hitting this child in the early morning. While I do not fault the bus driver or aide, these incidents point to a systemic failure to provide appropriate staffing and support. The recurring use of restraint and the denial of my attempts to conduct parental observation are indicative of a larger issue. If a system that is not adequately equipped to handle the unique challenges faced by children like my son, this board has the power to champion positive behavioral supports and ensure that applied behavior analysis principles are woven into our fabric of care. Moreover, hiring board-certified behavior analysts and other trained specialists will enhance our ability to create positive outcomes without resorting to restraints. I stand here not only for my son, but for all children like him who have no voice in this room. The mental trauma he is experiencing is unacceptable. We must prioritize their emotional well-being alongside their educational needs. I implore you to reassess and revise our restraint policies with an emphasis on transparency and parental notification. commit to the implementation of ABA principles, and employ BCBAs to guide our approach to behavior management, provide adequate and specialized training to meet the diverse needs of our student population, and allow for parental involvement, such as observation, to foster a collaborative environment for our children's success. We have a duty to protect and nurture these vulnerable members of our community. I ask for immediate action to safeguard their dignity and provide them with the compassionate education they deserve. Thank you for your time. I am ready to assist in any efforts to improve our children's safety and well-being, and look forward to your support and responsiveness to these pressing issues.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment this evening? All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All right, Ms. Jones, if you'd call the roll, please.
Mr. Alvis,
Yes.
Mr. Fletcher,
Yes.
Mr. Goodpaster,
Yes.
Mrs. Guffey,
Yes.
Mrs. Forbes Hubbard.
Yes. We'll move on to our action items. First action item is the approval of school board budget revision number 4. Is that you, Dr. Scott?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Before you, you have the revision number 4 for this year's budget, and the changes that will be added here with the approval last month of the security grants. Those have been added in, plus the match that goes along with each of those. The COPS School Violence Prevention Grant has been added in. We will be taking a recommendation to the City Council for additional appropriations for those, and we will prepare an email for you that will kind of lay out the timeline of those. We have combined the benefit lines for each department, so it's now in one line instead of two. We have updated personnel and benefits, which has resulted in savings in the budget, and we have added $36,000 to purchase services for maintenance, for one-time funding for some of the high-dollar expenses that we have come into that have been somewhat anticipated, such as the Highland View fire panel and some HVAC issues that we've had throughout the division. But if you need any further information on that, Ms. Tammy Jones stands ready to answer any questions that you might have. I do want to add, before we move off this item, that we have just only recently seen the governor's budget for the upcoming school year, and the outlook on that isn't as terrible as we had thought that it might be, and it is also not as promising as we had hoped for. So in the upcoming days, we will be giving you some more information about that. We have started to look through things, and it looks like we might have about $1.3 million in a growth margin, and but that also means that we're going to have some tough decisions to make as we get into that. And so we'll be meeting with you 2 by 2 this month to discuss those things.
Is there a motion to approve school board budget revision number 4?
I'll make a motion to approve school board budget revision number 4.
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, Ms. Jones?
Mr. Alvis,
Yes.
Mr. Fletcher,
Yes.
Mr. Goodpaster,
Yes.
Mrs. Guffey, Mrs. Forbes Hubbard.
Yes. We'll move on to item B, discussion and approval of the comprehensive plan. Dr. Chitwood, we'll turn it over to you.
Good evening. Before you, you should have a copy of our comprehensive plan. It has been through several iterations over the past 6 to 8 months because of the change in superintendent, and also the change in some of the other roles that the folks that were on the committees were assuming. So we started our comprehensive plan with the idea that we needed to involve as many stakeholders as possible. More than just school stakeholders, but community stakeholders as well. Each of the different categories for which we have set goals were assigned to a particular individual here at the central office. whether it was Mr. Ritchie or Dr. Denabrica or Ms. Hurt. They kind of were the chairpersons for those committees, and each committee had a principal, a parent from that school, and also a teacher from that school, and that's in addition to the community stakeholders. And in summation, with our statement of beliefs, what all the groups kind of came together and agreed upon is that for our comprehensive plan, that student learning must be paramount. And all of the other goals, of course, would support that particular idea. Some of the beliefs that we believe we will need in order to achieve adequate student learning is to provide them a safe learning environment. We know that we will continue to build relationships with families as well as other community stakeholders. We seek to provide an engaging and enriching curriculum for all students, whether gifted, general education, or self-contained special education students. We believe that offering many extracurricular opportunities affords students the chance to participate in things in which they are interested and affords them the opportunity to learn leadership skills and as well as teamwork. We believe that we must maintain state-of-the-art facilities and equipment so that our students graduate ready to enter the technological world that they will be working within. We must remember that we have to recruit and retain high-quality staff, and that's all staff members from the top to the bottom, and make sure that these individuals also have the same idea, the same beliefs that we have for what's best for our kids here in Bristol. And of course, all that's easy to say, but we also have to be mindful of being fiscally responsible as we go through these ideas. I'm not going to read the whole comprehensive plan to you all because I know that you've seen it before. I just want to highlight a few things. Our comprehensive plan was developed by a committee of 35 members. Some were teachers, administrators, school board members, higher education faculty, community leaders, and parents. Because of the size of our school division, our committee recognized that we must have community partnerships, that to offer the opportunities to all of our students, we would have to rely on some of the other folks in the community to help us accomplish this. So because of the size of our division, we have formed and hope to continue to have relationships with Virginia Highlands Community College, who will offer the dual enrollment courses at the high school. We also participate in the A. Linwood Holton Governor School, which also provides enrichment for students at the high school. In an effort to provide therapeutic services for students who struggle with mental health, we hope to maintain our relationship with Highlands Community Services, who do a fantastic job of meeting our students where they are and helping them to find strategies to kind of overcome the things with which they struggle. We also look to the City of Bristol to help us provide this great education. The Boys and Girls Club, as well as Girls Inc., and communities and schools of the Highlands are integral in our schools to help us reach all children and help them all to be successful. When we were talking about the budget just a minute ago, I think we have to consider, as part of this, our comprehensive plan, the enrollment forecast. When we think about funding and how our schools are funded, we must consider that in 2020, the U.S. Census said that there were a little over 17,000 people living within the city of Bristol, and about 19% of them were under the age of 18, so those with which we could work. The Virginia Weldon Cooper Center for Public Service, through the University of Virginia, they predict that by the year 2030, there will be a 2.4% reduction in our population size here in Bristol based on the trends that they've studied. And so with this being understood and thinking or taking into consideration funding and the needs that we will have, our comprehensive plan committee felt that it was very important that we consider the enrollment, what is predicted to happen, and if there's anything that we can do to prevent that from happening, at least as far as our school-age children are concerned. Under the direction of Dr. Perigin, because this started before he left, we kind of divided the comprehensive plan up into different sections from which the previous one had been divided. So the first section is assessment and results of student learning, which we said at the beginning was our ultimate goal, was to focus on that. And underneath the section 1 for that assessment of learning, we developed goals as a committee that would support student learning, such as developing a profile of student strengths as well as their weaknesses. I think we will be able to accomplish that in the future through the Virginia Literacy Act and bridging the gap with mathematics. We are looking to know our kids more as individuals rather than as just a group, like all sixth graders, for example. We will know our students, their strengths and their weaknesses much more intimately, I believe. We hope to, of course, improve graduation rates because we know that our students need to graduate to be productive citizens, to become employed, or to move along to post-secondary education at the collegiate level. Our next section is family and community engagement. One of the biggest issues that administrators are facing right now is chronic absenteeism. And we hope that through family engagement activities, we host family nights, we've started the mental health series. We're hoping that if we can build a more familial feel within the school system, within the building, parents feel welcome, their students feel welcome and loved, that we will be able to mitigate some of the chronic absenteeisms with which we battle every day. And we also hope to engage families in activities that allow families to form bonds and partnerships with local agencies so that they can advocate for things that they may need outside of the school. Section 3 was professionalism and professional knowledge. Finding teachers today is difficult, and even more difficult is to keep them. When we find excellent educators, we've got to do everything we can, of course, to keep them here with us in Bristol for our kiddos. So there's some goals there associated with professionalism and professional knowledge, such as professional development, making sure our teachers are equipped to handle the different types of things that we see in the classroom today, which in some cases is quite different than 10 or 15 years ago. Section 4 is leadership, and this, Dr. Scott mentioned that Ms. Hudson was kind of spearheading the wellness event. And so in the leadership section, with all the goals, there's a lot of things to be considered. And of course, we want the well-being of our students to be a priority, but also the well-being of our staff. Some days are difficult for our staff mentally. They're taxing. And any opportunities that the committee felt we could offer to our staff for more mindfulness, we felt would be beneficial. In this category, we also considered things like food services, which it sounds like with our certifications, we're well on our way for food service to be top-notch. We want to continue to provide digital learning opportunities for our students so that they feel equipped with the technological skills that they will need in the future. Of course, transit is part of a consideration of that as well, that we maintain our fleet and we're able to bring our kids to and from school safely. Section 5 is learning environment, and this kind of bridges the gap between the technology and the curriculum piece. We need to be sure that we are providing students with engaging and enriching activities that's appropriate for each individual child. So we keep in mind the gifted students, our self-contained special ed students, and all of the students in between. They can build some self-confidence and self-esteem as they begin to close learning gaps that we know exist, especially in English and math. If we are engaging and enriching, then we're closing those gaps, and kids are enjoying the process. So we feel that that's quite important. And then finally is educational opportunities. And I'm glad that we are having the CTE open house at the high school pretty soon for our 8th grade students, because it gives them an opportunity now to start thinking about what their goals will be. And in some cases, especially if your child is the oldest child in the family, you may not be well aware of the different CTE opportunities that your kids can take advantage of. So as a committee, we believe that providing career and technical education must be a priority, as this will allow students to find success in any type of avenue that they decide to embark upon. We propose that we continue to utilize the Work Keys test, as many students are able to be successful on the Work Keys and are able to gain the verified credits needed for graduation. And I think that's kind of a brief overview of what the comprehensive plan entails. Do you have any questions? Yes, sir.
The objectives are kind of brushed over in a small paragraph. What are the objectives? Can we get a copy of that?
Let's see, which, do you mean the school board or school division objectives?
Yeah, let's,
Below that, Stephanie.
Absolutely, yes, it should be in there, and if it's not, we will make sure. There's the beliefs. Keep going, if you don't mind. There's enrollment. Oh, okay,
I think I saw it when we scrolled through just a second ago.
yeah. There it is, school division objectives. This is just a very blanket statement that says that the school board.
I understand that. I just want to know what the objectives are.
The objectives are the beliefs on the first page.
The beliefs?
That we will utilize stakeholder input to ensure that we are doing those following things, with student learning being paramount.
Okay, so the beliefs are the objectives.
In the way that this is stated, the objectives is a statement that says we're going to all work together, including many stakeholders, to accomplish what we believe is paramount for our students.
Somehow I'm not getting that.
Okay.
But go ahead, you can, if there are any other questions.
We can tighten language on that, but I think one of the things that works
I
for us
just
and
thought the
against us,
objectives would be,
bulleted kind of, yeah.
that are pretty plain and understandable.
And we can draw that up. One of the things that is not evident here is that there is another document that talks more about the strategies that will be employed as we go through those goals. And so that could be something that further helps spell out the objectives.
And then in our email that we got, or the email that showed the agenda, there were 3 iterations of this document.
Yes,
So
sir.
which one are we voting on?
What is presented now, and I'm not sure on a technical side what.
Are they
what-
different? 'Cause I
No,
didn't.
sir,
Then there was another issue. There's nothing in there talking about gifted students, how we approach that.
Perhaps we need to change the language a bit in the plan, but when we talk about all students, that was the assumption that we were talking about every single student and their individual strengths and weaknesses list in which we can help.
I would just like to see something that zeroes in on that category.
Okay.
So the estimate by the Weldon Cooper Center for enrollment, is that typically very accurate? I mean, we're looking at losing 150 students over the next 4 years.
the Weldon Cooper Center, they make predictions based on birth rate.
Okay.
And so if you look at that exclusively, that's what you'll see, and that is a trend statewide.
Right.
However, information that was shared by Weldon Cooper at the VASBO event in Richmond today fellow superintendent texted this along to Tammy and I, that Bristol, as far as in-migration, has the highest rate of in-migration throughout the state. So I think that in some ways can offset this. Whether or not those are families with students remains to be seen. But I think throughout the Commonwealth, Virginia is losing people, and we could expect that there will be a decline in enrollment. I don't know if 2.4% will hold,
Right.
but I'd say it's between 1% and 2% pretty safely.
Just looking from, the first 3 school years that it listed, we lost 19 kids. And from there on, we're looking at losing 200 kids. So.
Well, and sometimes what can be misleading about that, for one, we said that there's birth rate is the main indicator of that. But when we look at our funding and how the funding comes through us as ADM funding, what has also hurt smaller school divisions is with the onset of the COVID epidemic, or pandemic rather, we had a lot of students transition out of public schools to homeschooling. And so I think that is something that also carries through some of the data, is the idea that there are, unfortunately, fewer students in public schooling right now.
And too, as far as that goes, the ADM number is just for one day. When we give our enrollment number, that's just for,
right. It is
1 day.
It's a snapshot on October 30th, and
Yep.
and it's kind of rectified at the end of the year, March 30th. But yeah, those two, and I may have misquoted that, may be October 1st and one date in May. But those dates tend to kind of lock in the funding and give the state a chance to reconcile. And in past years, the state has been a little bit more lenient in not withholding funding if it's available. But I think if the new budget is an indication, one of the things that the state is trying to do is to revamp the whole ADM model. And it may take several years to accomplish that, but to assign different weights per student based on student interest and student needs. So the whole funding model, unfortunately, may be blown up in the next couple years.
I'm glad they're finally taking a look at it. It's been needed change.
Thank you, Dr. Chitwood.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion to approve the comprehensive plan?
I move we approve the comprehensive plan.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All right, we'll call the roll. Ms. Jones, please.
Mr. Alvis,
Yes.
Mr. Fletcher,
Yes.
Mr. Goodpaster,
Yes.
Mrs. Geffey,
Yes.
Mrs. Forbes Hubbard.
Yes. All right, we'll move on to the second reading, discussion and approval of the proposed revisions for cell phone regulation policy JFC R2, or regulation JFC R2. Dr. Scott?
Madam Chair, you had asked me to check with our school board attorney to see if everything that is in our policy squares with him from a legal aspect. And I sent the policy to him and awaited a response, and did get a voicemail back. From the attorney's perspective, he believes that our policy as written puts us in good stead with the law. He has no concerns, particularly when, and I'm going to highlight 3 different aspects. But one, whereas we have no intent to keep phones permanently as a consequence of a student violation, he sees there being no legal issue with that, and it is clearly not our intent to say that Dr. Chitwood has violated the phone policy, and now we have her iPhone 13 forever. So that's not our intent. There is in some of the legal commentary around this issue, and there's a very small body of commentary around this, but one of the things that comes up is the idea of content on a student's phone and whether or not the school administrators have a right to view that content. And our position on that is, if there's a cell phone violation, we're not interested in the content necessarily, and by and large, students would have the opportunity to turn off their phone if that made them feel better about it. However, there would be situations where the violation isn't triggered by a phone being visible or audible at a certain time, but if there's an issue of harassment going on where the content of that phone would be absolutely pertinent to what's going on. So Just on its face, the intention would not be to take a student's phone so that we could go through it. And the third principle undergirds all of this, and it's the most basic in that if we're in a situation where there's a cell phone violation, one, we will have presented the policy to everybody. We will have forewarned everyone of its application and what a violation looks like. And this furthers our standing with due process. So students would have the advantage of knowing what the policy is. They would have the advantage of knowing when they have breached the policy. They would have an opportunity to be heard and to say, well, actually, this is what I was doing when you thought I was doing something else. But then the administrator would have the ability to determine whether or not there was a violation, and we'd proceed from there. One of the things that I would like to offer, though, is while this document is one page, I think for the purpose of being a regulation, that's all it needs to be. However, as we go to implement, almost on in the line of Office of Civil Rights, dear colleague letters, I think that we need to put something in print for how we will, what guidance that we need to give teachers and students and administrators on how to enforce this policy. I think that there is, as Mr. Fletcher pointed out last month, there may be some vagueness in how we've described some things. So we want to be very clear in how we communicate to students what will constitute a violation, and we want to be very clear with administrators on how to proceed from that point.
Do we need to do the reading before we do a motion?
We do, and would you like me to read it?
That'd be great. You go right ahead. I actually don't have it pulled up, sorry. Let me. There you go.
Reading to an audience is one of my least favorite things, so please bear with me here. The cell phone policy for secondary students. Students may have cell phones in their physical possession at all times during the school day, except during tests and examinations, or when actively participating in experiential learning activities such as labs, field studies, etc. When students are not allowed to have cell phones in their physical possession, cell phones may be kept in book bags or voluntarily placed in a collection area in the same classroom as the student. Phones not in the physical possession of students should be silenced far enough away from the student to prevent distraction and accessible in case of an emergency. Students may use their cell phones before and after school, during class changes, and during their lunch periods. Cell phones are to be silenced and concealed in the student's clothing or book bag during class time. Students may not use their cell phones during class time unless the faculty member providing direct supervision gives the student specific permission to use their cell phones. Cell phones used in the following manners will result in disciplinary consequences for the student: unauthorized use during class time, possessing cell phones during tests, examinations, or experiential learning activities, unauthorized recording, audio or video, of a person or a setting where there is an expectation of privacy, communicating messages that promote hatred, instigate violence, harass, or otherwise diminish or antagonize students or staff members, and using a cell phone in any other violation of the student code of conduct. Students who violate the cell phone policy will be expected to give their cell phones to a teacher or administrator, and the cell phone will be secured in the office until the end of the school day. Students who do not turn over their cell phones to school administrators will be suspended for insubordination. On a first violation, a student may remain in class, the parent and guardian will be contacted and made aware of the violation, and the student may pick up the cell phone no sooner than 15 minutes before the end of the school day. On a second violation, the student will receive in-school suspension. The parent or guardian must pick up the cell phone at the end of the school day. Must pick up the phone at the school no sooner than the end of the school day, and the parent and guardian will be asked to sign an acknowledgement of the cell phone policy and the violation. On the third and all subsequent violations, students will receive in-school suspension for the remainder of the day. The student will then be suspended from school for up to 2 more days, and the parent or guardian must pick up the cell phone at the school no sooner than the end of the day.
Thank you, Dr. Scott. Is there a motion to approve? Sorry, got the motion to approve cell phone regulation JFCR2.
I move we approve the cell phone policy.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? No discussion? All right, you can call the roll, please.
Mr. Alvis?
Yes.
Mr. Fletcher?
Yes.
Mr. Goodpaster?
Yes.
Mrs. Guppy?
Yes.
Mrs. Forbes Hubbard?
Yes. All right, Ms. Guffey, will you read us into closed session, please? It's in here.
Pursuant to Section 2.2-3711A1 of the Code of Virginia, I move that the board convene a closed meeting for the purpose of discussing the following matters: discussion of certain personnel, recommendation for employment, and resignations.
Is there a second? All right. Ms. Jones?
Mr. Alvis?
Yes.
Mr. Fletcher?
Yes.
Mr. Goodpaster?
Yes.
Mrs. Guppy?
Yes.
Mrs. Forbes Hubbard?
Yes. All right, with that, we are in closed session. Thank you all so much for coming out tonight. All right, Ms. Guffey, if you'll read us back in, please.
The Bristol, Virginia School Board certifies that, to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting, and only such public matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were considered.
Second.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
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 Yes. Do I have a motion to approve attachment A?
Make a motion to approve attachment A.
Second.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
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 Yes. And is there a motion to approve the request for release from compulsory school attendance due to religious convictions 05CA 202324 and 06CA 202324?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Yes.
No. Yes. Filling out this thing
Yes.
here.
Yes. All right, is there any other old or new business? All right, then we are adjourned.
Oh, good job.
Thank you. Thank you.